What's up, guys? Thanks for checking out the channel today. Today I am super excited because I finally got to take the Jeep JL out for a nice long drive. It was the first drive after installing the Accuair JL air suspension kit, and I have to say, at first impressions, I am really impressed on how it rides. But today I'm not going to be talking about that because I want to spend a little bit more time driving it around, testing the features and the functions of the system before I give you guys my real thoughts about it. But today I will be giving a review of the install. I'm going to tell you guys how the install went for myself, problems I ran into, how I solved them, what issues I contacted Accuair about. I'm going to give you guys all of that. And I am also going to give you guys a little bit of sneak peek of just the overall functions of what you can do with the controller. So a little bit of a montage of the Jeep going up and down and moving around. So let's get into talking about the issues, and then we'll get in and show you that montage. So first, let's talk about how long it took to do the install. I was doing it in a garage, so basically I had no lift, I only had jack stands, so it took me a little longer, and I was also filming most of it. With that in count, it probably took me at least, I want to say 20 to 30 hours doing the install and filming. I would think that the kit would probably take about 15 hours to do. The kit was pretty easy to do. It wasn't that hard. You could do it with, if you have a nice socket set and you have some power tools, you can really break this out really easily. The biggest challenge I had was when you're using stands and you're not on lift, you have to get the stands from the front to the back. Because I did the component install first and then installed the air system after, it was a little harder because I couldn't inflate the front bags. What I would recommend is following the instructions, put the air system in first, because the air system, even though it's not calibrated, still gives you the ability to put air into the front bags once you have them completed. So that means you can put air into the front, put pressure on the system, and lift the Jeep off to get the jack stands out to put them on the back. So I recommend following the instructions, follow the steps of putting the air system in first and all the wires, then put the components in. Don't do what I did, do the reverse. So let's talk about the front first. If anyone's installed a lift kit in a Jeep and they put longer springs in, you're using stands instead of an actual lift, you've all ran into the problem where you've got all the components out and you're putting in the new springs, but you have to get the axle down far enough so that you can get that spring in. Sometimes you're just like trying to pry the spring into place. Well, the good part with the airbags is that you don't have to worry about that. The benefit was I didn't have to like worry about the depth. I just had to take the bag, compress it, and slide it into place. So that made it really easy. In terms of the rest of the components, like the shocks, the sway bar link, I had no problems installing that. The control arms were easy as well. The only thing I would say is the instructions kind of missed the detail about indicating which control arm was for what. So as you saw in the install, I actually removed an upper on the other side and had to put it back in. Basically, if you read the instructions, or the instructions had more details to indicate you're removing just the lowers, that would be great. It would also be great if the control arms were labeled saying which side was for what, just for safety reasons and also knowing that this is the right control arm for the right side and for the right spot. That would be great. So maybe they'll add that in, but otherwise it was pretty easy to figure out once you just kind of looked at where the components go and you were able to put it in place. So I did run into an issue with the front track bar. It was a minor issue, but all it was basically the front heim joint is a little snug for the bracket. So I actually had to use a hammer to slide it in place. This was just a bit of pain because, of course, when you get it into place, you had to pull it back out, rotate it to get the right length, and then slide it back in. So that was a bit of a pain, but it was able to go in, and I know that it's a nice snug fit, so it's not that big of a deal. So for the rear, I had three minor issues. Nothing too big, everything I could deal with. But the first one, you would have saw it in the first video of the install where I chipped the TRACKBAR arm bracket. And the reason I tripped it was because in the instructions, it tells you to grind a weld down and then slide it up over the stock bracket. Well, the problem was I didn't have a grinder. So I ended up just using a hammer to tap it on. but because the powder coating was a little weak, the tapping caused it to chip. I'm not worried about this. I just sprayed it with black paint once I got it installed. It shouldn't be a big issue, but I would wish that the powder coating was a little stronger so that it could withstand a little bit of abuse. The next issue I ran into was the sway bar link. One of my rear sway bar links had the wrong bushing in it, and basically the opening where the sleeve slides in was too big. What I did was duct tape the sleeve a bit to make it bigger and then slid it into place. It's a temporary solution, but then I contacted Accuair and they're already sending me out the new one. So temporary solution, but I'll have the new one soon. So once that's in, I'm sure I'll have no problems. The next thing that I ran into was a minor issue with the upper shock. Basically where the shock slides in, it was really tight. So it was a really challenge to get the shock up into the stock mounting position. It was mostly because it seemed the bushings and the sleeve that hold the top shock in were just a little bit too big. So I had to use a little bit of force, but the good thing is I know that it's not gonna come out. So that was a minor thing. They went in, they're fine. I just know they're very tight. So it would have been nice if there was a little bit more clearance, but beggars can't be choosers. Okay, so that's all the issues I ran into with the components. Let's now talk about the air management system and the electrical part. If you saw in the second install video, when I was installing the plate that holds the compressor and the tank, it was a bit of a challenge to get it up and under there, mainly because the bolts were not aligning right on. So that was a bit of a challenge and definitely hard to do when you're by yourself. If you had two people, it'd be a lot easier. I was using a jack to help hold it in place. But once I got it there, it was okay. But it was definitely a lot of work and more work than needed to happen. So for running the airlines and the electrical, this was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, and it was actually kind of fun. The biggest challenge you had to do was just make sure that your airlines are away from the exhaust. You want to make sure that they can't get in contact anything that gets hot, because they'll melt and then you'll have a big air leak. The great part about doing the install was following the diagrams they gave. Those diagrams showed you exact paths you needed to take, and they gave you all the zip ties you need for everything. So you just had to get under the vehicle, run the paths. The labeling of the cords was great. Everything was easy. They also gave you a lot of extra airline and electrical power line. So it made it really easy because I was able to get all the length I need, cut it off, and I still have some extra in case I need it in the future. The biggest thing for the airline that I'm running into right now is it seems I have a leak somewhere. It looks like my tank is not holding air. So I probably have to find that. So that just means spending some time with some water and some soap and finding the joint that is leaking and then correcting that joint. Shouldn't take long, but it's going to be something I have to figure out. Airbags and stuff seem to be holding air, so that's great. It just seems to be something with the tank. So I'll be investigating that and I'll keep you guys posted on my findings. So for the ECU install, this part was actually a little bit of a challenge. Plugging all the cords and stuff into the ECU, that was easy. The problem was where to run the cords and then also getting that bracket installed. I wish they had given some type of a cut template, because you do have to cut your carpet for where the cords come through and then where the bracket slides in to get to the mounting point. This is just fine details. I was able to eventually get it right, and everybody else will probably have that ability, but it would just be nice to have something that made it a little bit easier. One thing I did run into though is the mounting screw. So the mounting screw is supposed to be right here, but unfortunately I'm not able to actually get it to catch the bolt that they provide. So I probably need to get a longer bolt to make it work. For now, it seems to be holding because it's slid in behind this plastic, and that's holding it in place. But I really want to have that bolt in the right place. So I'm gonna have to get a longer bolt to put in there. It would have been nice if they gave a little bit more clearance in that bolt. They made it nice and really tight, but that's why I'm running into this problem, is because not every Jeep is maybe necessarily built the same, or because the way the cords are running in behind it, they're causing too much pressure and I can't get that bolt to catch. So the last thing that I ran into was something that was missing from the instructions, and that was the speed module install. I didn't know exactly which cord goes to where, what part has to be tapped into a certain wire. But once I contacted Accuair, they gave me a link to a new YouTube video that they just posted, because basically they found out that they didn't put that into the manual. So now I'm sure the instruction manual has that, but they also have a link that shows you how to do it in a YouTube video. Made it really easy. Once I followed that, I was able to do it. So now I've got it installed. It's in my place I wanted to place it, and it's functioning perfectly. So one more issue I want to mention is an issue I ran into with the calibration. If you watched the second install video, you would have seen that I talked about that I had to run the calibration twice. And that was mainly because the front height sensors were obstructed. There's a little arm on the sensor. It was in the down position, and when it was in the down position, it was contacting the lower control arm. Once I flipped that around, I had no issues, and I was able to run the calibration as you saw in that video. The one thing I didn't know is that the ground I was on was uneven. I didn't think that was going to be big of an issue, but what I found out was it does cause some issues. And the issue I ran into was the vehicle was on the front was going up uneven. So the passenger side was a little lower than the driver's side. How I figured this out was I was trying to turn and my front tire would contact my bumper. Right now it's at the lowest setting, so of course it would. But at ride, that's what was happening. Well, I contacted Accuair, asked them, how do I fix this? What's going on? They said, do a recalibration, and then you can also adjust this presets a bit. So I ran that recalibration on even ground, and now the issue is gone. I also, with this kit, you're able to go in and adjust the presets by 5%. So I went and did that. I pulled the front up a bit, giving me a more level stance. And I'm glad they give you that a little ability to make that adjustment, because now it goes up evenly and has no issues. So besides that, that's all I ran into. So guys, that's all the feedback I have about the install. Overall, pretty happy with the kit. The issues I did run into were pretty minor things and things you just kind of had to work around. I am sure Accuair is going to make some adjustments to their kit and correct it, so that when you buy the next production of this kit, you're probably not going to run into some of those issues. And if you do run into issues, the customer service at Accuair is pretty easy to work with. You can just send them a message and they'll get that replacement part sent out. Mine's already on its way. Can't wait to put that in so I can give you a full feedback of the kit, of a performance. Speaking of performance, I have to say the alignment of this was pretty well done. I have no issue. They seemed to have no issue when they were doing it, so they were able to get it in once I had it set up at the ride height. I am looking forward to giving you guys more feedback about how this rides and functions, but as I said in the beginning, I want to test it out further before I give you that feedback, so that's going to be on a next video. At this point, guys, let's wrap this up. If you have not already, please subscribe to my channel so you can get notified of the next videos I post. If you have any questions, post them below. I'll do my best to answer them. Please like and share this video. And for now, I'll see you guys on the next video.